Now, I have some plans later, so you'll be on your own. And do you mind having dinner alone tonight? After that, we can all see the show together.
On a magical Disney.
Hey, aren't you glad I thought of this?
Call and discover uncharted magic.
Yeah. How far would you go to protect me?
We're really building a long-term franchise here, and my philosophy is that if we do right by our community members, Wall Street will ultimately do right by the eBay shareholders.
Meg Whitman says she is doing just fine, thank you. That despite losing $50 million bucks or so on paper this week, she can still say, oh boy, about her eBay, to which more than a few investors are simply responding, oy vey, namely because while her earnings look good, her expenses do not. And this week, neither did her stock. It was an oddity in a week that saw the technology-rich NASDAQ storming back to all-time highs, apparently without the help of the online auction house. So if you are an investor, which do you believe? eBay's costs, which are real, or the rest of the sector's incredible market gains, which are looking unreal? John?
Well, I think that we're going to enter this whittling out phase. Not that eBay is a company necessarily to be whittled out, although you have to question valuations.
You have to question valuations about a lot of internet stocks.
Exactly, where the real winners will emerge. And they may not yet be here. They may be the brick and mortar companies of today that become the electronic companies of tomorrow. So I still say play the sector, you play the infrastructure, you play the Sun Microsystems, you play Cisco, the IBM on this pullback, the guys who are going to be helping companies to do this sort of thing. After all, eBay's now got to compete with Amazon, who's setting up online shops. We've seen banks starting to enter this arena. It's going to be a lot of competition.
David Kern, do you have any internet plays? Do you dabble with it?
The internet is one of the biggest revolutions going on right now, and because of our platform of focus and innovators, absolutely.
Who do you play on?
Well, we're on the communication side. The DSL is, providing a bigger bandwidth pipe. So companies like Netopia and or Key Communications, which are providing the technology and the services to provide that faster connection. Companies like VeriSign, which really owns the market on security and authentication. I guess what we're really focused on is the business model, and I think that's where a lot of internet investors are going to get caught up.
So not just people who depend on revenue from those who slap ads on their sites.
Well, think about this. The issue with eBay and with Amazon is what investors are starting to figure out is that they have to spend so much money to acquire customers. The reason they have to spend so much money to acquire customers is that the barriers to entry are almost non-existent, meaning the competition is very high. I think the way that you want to invest in the internet is find those companies that are extremely well positioned in high barriers to entry. And that tends to be the communication providers, the security providers, and that's how we've gone about investing in the internet. But we are not all that excited about, companies that are getting the revenues from banner ads and stuff like that, because I think that's a thing of the past.
It's a little overkill. Ash, we don't have much time, but this idea that the market has run up so fast and so furious for the NASDAQ now about 35% year to date, is it getting nosebleedy? Again?
No, it is not. I think it's just beginning to really tell people that you got to be in the leaders with earnings visibility, with, as David mentioned, a business model, barriers to enter, and added two more Bs if it's an internet name, brand name, and bricks and mortar that John alluded to, old-fashioned names cutting into retailing.
All right, an old-fashioned name like Mark Andreessen at the ripe old age of 28 is back in the news, this time in the role of Yoda. We'll explain.
Kind of insurance. Quick and made personal finance painless for over
the economic development that's happening on the internet, the move of business to the internet is a systemic change happening at a very fast pace. And I think, frankly, we are just at the very beginning still. I think that the internet's going to be 1,000 times bigger in 10 years, and that's the real story.
Mark Andreessen is not a shirt and tie kind of guy. Never was, never will be. Gosh knows after AOL scooped up his Netscape Communications, he tried. But after only a few months, Mark pointed, clicked, and logged out, ultimately returning to what made him a near billionaire in the first place, starting something from scratch on his own. His latest endeavor is called LoudCloud, a startup that puts the 28-year-old Andreessen in the odd role of a high-tech Yoda, helping businesses get up on the web and fast. Better the confines of an ugly warehouse, I suppose, with no corporate structure than fancy offices with lots of structure. Karen, will it work?
I think it will, because as you said, he's a visionary. Even though at 28 years old, he's considered now one of the old titans or the old lions of this business. It is still in such a stage of infancy.
What does that make us, Karen?
I don't even go there, don't even go there. But it does show that and the infancy of this business, and so many people trying to get on at the same time, that they do need help. And so helping other businesses start up and get onto the web is probably an excellent position for him, and help those companies that really are struggling and need to make that leap.
I always thought of a lot of the original Netscape veterans, Ash, who have left AOL since they took it over. And I wonder what happens there when that, the Tylus group is taken over by the Ty group, even though that's unfair to say about AOL itself and internet, maybe blue chip play. What's going on here?
Well, what this talent has going for them is they have that one B word, the brand. They certainly can extrapolate the brand to a new enterprise, which what Mark is doing. But what they don't yet have is a strong business model, like David alluded to, and certainly don't have barriers to entry at this point, because the businesses seem a little weak in terms of the business model. But they will get tons of venture capital exposure. They'll get all the support that they can, and probably go to the marketplace and manifest the products and services, which I think Mr. Andreessen has going for it.
John, the only rap against a lot of the internet guys is they all can't succeed.
Well, that's right. It's the lottery ticket. Not everybody can win the lottery, but everybody plays the lottery. That is Greenspan's analogy.
What concept wins for you?
For me, the concept wins of having a real business. The internet will be our future, but that doesn't mean it's a .com future. I still believe that the big plays, as I said before, will be those companies who have the brand name and have the product that people want to get, which will be delivered more efficiently, and they will make themselves more efficient.
But how about David's view, which I think is a good one and maybe a sound one going forward, the underpinnings? Maybe sometimes they're not so sexy names, but the guys who help get you there.
Well, that's right. Clearly, there's going to be a certain degree of high-tech expertise, and this is one person who has it and may well succeed in this new venture. But it's not the only person. I mean, you can. I firmly believe it'll be more like a safer place, more like an established giant like IBM, which is going to be central to many people's e-business plans. Because
right.
If you're doing it for a corporation, or a brick-and-mortar corporation, trying to transform yourself, you're going to say, well, who should I trust? What name should I go with? And here's a brand name that's been around, has reinvented itself. And IBM and Lou Gerstner's vision, which is still, we're only 5 years or longer, 30-year-old, appeared twice in Greenspan's speech. And I can't recall Greenspan naming a CEO by name. So, I think this vision, we're just starting along.
Maybe when he sat next to Scully at the president's first State of the
But taking on that bricks and mortar to clicks and mortar segue, kind of take Gap stores, totally untraditional from the internet image, but is a successful store, great execution.
Well, they dumped their CEO.
Well, but in terms of profitability, business, and track record, awesome. And now they have a net space as well to get the 360-degree marketing. To me, that's a success.
All right. I'm sorry, we're going to take a quick break, then I do want to come back to you and explore the issue of why Citi is looking pretty after this. We've raised eyebrows enough when you and John Reed had to share power. Now 3 people are in this co-chair role.
What that shows is obviously John and I are doing so well together that we can afford to bring somebody else in it.
I think it'll help the way Sandy and I work together. I think it'll help us deal with issues. Bob brings a special set of skills that neither Sandy nor I have, and the 3 of us really combine an awful lot.
All righty. And you think the bidding for Yankees' soon-to-be free agent pitcher David Cone will be fast and furious. Let me introduce you to one Bob Rubin, the financial dynamo who some credit with today's economic juggernaut, who was widely and wildly pursued by Wall Street's best and brightest. The team that won him over is not so incidentally the team many think, and maybe Rubin knew, stood best to benefit from the changes that Rubin sought in financial services. Citigroup. The part bank, part brokerage, part insurance concern that is the very vision of the deregulated future championed by the former Treasury Secretary. Rubin will be co-chairman along with co-chairman Sandy Weil, along with co-chairman John Reed. They'll all be happily sharing the same floor at Citigroup and no doubt enjoying the services of the same food tasters. But on paper, all the men say it will work. I don't know, David. What do you think?
I think it's too early to tell, but I think it's clear why Rubin chose Citigroup, and that is because you have one of the largest, the strongest bank, strongest insurance company, one of the strongest brokerage firms. You know, this company was just sort of set up for the Glass-Steagall, you know, repeal. And now all you'd have to do is, integrate all the companies, and you know, you have the synergies that everybody's looking for.
The Glass-Steagall repeal, you say, you know this like an encyclopedia, the original barriers between banking and insurance set up after the 29 stock market crash.
Exactly.
Right.
So, I mean, I think the company's been very well positioned to, you know, they read the writing on the wall, and it's just sort of become a reality, and they're further along than anybody else, in my opinion.
But I see three powerful people sharing the same floor.
With three massive egos.
Yeah.
Fortunately, Bob Rubin is going to be...
Who wins? Who wins?
I say Sandy Weil and Bob Rubin are going to be the two guys standing, and that they won't be in each other's business. Rubin taking the big picture, and as David
But Rubin
saying,
has no line authority yet.
Exactly, right. And so that's where he's not no threat.
Do you think that he's no threat? You know, I always think of he's like the quiet tiger, as Richard Parsons was, a transplant from the dime to Time Warner, where now he's almost calling the shots. He brings such experience, he brings such authority, he brings such respect to that in going into this millennium and this new era of financial institutions where everybody's going to be in everybody's business. And that's what he's bringing to the table. He's not going to be involved, and I think he's pretty much been very clear about that, that he doesn't want to run the day-to-day operations. Yeah, but Ash Reagan methinks he doth depress too much.
No, what Rubin brings to the table is Rubin. Rubin opens doors. Rubin opens global doors, and that helps the Citibank franchise. If he frankly had a choice, the only other so-called global enterprise would be American Express. And if you're playing the global recovery
I thought
card,
Governor of New York.
Maybe. Not that global, though.
What do you think? Would he turn down the job that everyone thinks he just might be offered in a couple of years, Federal Reserve Chairman? Yeah, right.
I think it's a tempting job for him to take, and he might take it. That's my speculation.
What do you think, John?
Oh, I think Greenspan's going to succeed Greenspan, and there's a term in England, minister.
How old is Greenspan now, though?
72, 73?
Yeah?
Exactly, and with a much younger wife, and, you know, still needs a job. And
careful, it's cable, John. We're not going to push the envelope. Just this might work in Britain, but in this country, we have standards here, John. All right,
even if it's cable.
No, so you argue that...
Who's going to anoint Rubin? In all likelihood, it'll be the
How
next...
about Republicans? Many of whom are angry, led by the conservative wing of the Republican Party, think that Greenspan is being too vigilant.
Ooh, and Greenspan's tone changed this week, didn't it? As he saw these wonderful GDP and inflation numbers. And no, he's still most likely to succeed himself, I think. And meanwhile, you know, it's not so bad to be a minister without portfolio at whatever compensation level. It's certainly going to be higher than the group at this table added together.
Absolutely.
And then multiplied by a number.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, he left Goldman Sachs last year, Karen, what, $26 million?
Yeah.
I tried to get out of either Reed or Weil whether it was close to that, and they said none of your business. But I bet you it's going to dwarf that by when all is said and done.
I'm sure it will.
David, do you think now that we are economically in good shape, though, that the type of changes we're seeing going on, led by a Citigroup preparing itself for post-financial services reform, that's sort of like the cusp of the new era, post-2000?
Well, that's a loaded question, huh?
I don't know what it means, but I just was asking.
I think on the financial side, which I will group in banking, insurance, as well as brokerage, there is a lot of consolidation still to occur. Probably not as much on the banking side. A lot of that's occurred, but there sure is a lot of capacity on the insurance side that needs to be weeded out. And
who do you buy in this environment, though? Do you bet on takeovers, or do you just bet on insurance companies more than banks more than insurance companies, or?
Well, I'll be very upfront. We do not make many investments in the financial industry, primarily because we don't see many innovators in the financial industry. We're also talking about large cap, and my expertise is small cap, but I think that the companies that are positioned well with the brand,
look good. All right.
You know, really are the ones that you want to invest in.
All right, David, final word on the subject. I want to thank Ash. I want to thank John. I certainly want to thank Karen. I want to thank you. Bye-bye.
This week on Fox News Watch, will Pete Rose get to baseball's Hall of Fame?
Studied 747 fuel tank problems years before the TWA Flight 800 disaster. The Washington Post says Boeing never told the National Transportation Safety Board that it completed a report on the center fuel tank overheating problems. Cleveland high schoolers will notice lots more security when they get into class on Monday. Police arrested 4 white students and questioned 7 others in what Cleveland's mayor describes as a plot for a racially motivated attack. A local newspaper says the students plan to use guns and bombs to kill students and teachers at a predominantly black high school. A lawyer for 2 suspects says there was no plot. A drifter in Colombia could turn out to be one of the worst serial killers in history. A 42-year-old handyman is accused of raping, torturing, and killing 140 children over a 7-year period. Police say Luis Alfredo Garavito confessed to the murders. O.J. Simpson says he won't be heading into a criminology class as a guest lecturer. Simpson says he's dumbfounded by the reports that he was invited and then uninvited into a California State University law class. He says he knows nothing about it. And a little rain has fallen on the New York Yankees parade. Some Democratic state politicians in New York were barred by Republican Mayor Rudy Giuliani's office from taking an active part in the festivities. As for the parade, 30 people were hurt and 6 people were arrested, including a topless woman on the balcony of a building. Finally, there are 2 things to remember as daylight saving time ends tonight. Set your clocks back an hour and change your smoke detector battery. Our next update is at the bottom of the hour. Now it's time for Fox News Watch. Stay tuned.
Last week at this time, Jim Gray was a relatively unknown reporter. This week, he needs no introduction. They need no introduction. They do need an introduction to George W. Bush, who didn't show up for their debate. Those stories and more on Fox News Watch right now. I'm Eric Burns, and I have some introductions of my own to make, starting with Jim Pinkerton of Newsday, Jeff Cohen of Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting, Jane Hall of the American University in Washington, D.C., and Cal Thomas of Fairness and Accuracy in syndicated column writing. I want to start the program this week with this excerpt from Jim Gray's interview last Sunday with Pete Rose. Then Jeff Cohen will tell you what's wrong with it. This is what Gray said at one point to Rose. Those who will hear this tonight will say that you have been your own worst enemy and continue to be.
It's one of these weasel questions where you purport to be talking about the third person. Some people will think. A direct question would have been, aren't you your worst enemy?
And it shows his opinion, Jim, because he could just as easily have said, there are those who hear this tonight who will say you've been adamant and admirable in denying for 10 years that you've done anything wrong.
Well, I mean, what Gray could have done is simply said, look, I think based on the evidence that you're a convicted gambler, that you're a convicted tax evader, and you were thrown out of baseball, and I don't think you should come back. And I think that would have spoken, certainly for me, in the audience.
But as some people have said, Jane, it wasn't so much what he said or how he said it, but when he said it. Had he gone as far as Jim did, even, that just wasn't the time or place. Do you agree with that criticism?
Well, I agree. I mean, it points up the problem that you always have with access on an interview. Rose said, hey, you know, this is a party for me. What are you doing raining on my parade? I think the problem was that he went on and on and on in a very prosecutorial way. And, you know, if Bob Costas had done it, I think he would have gotten the information and not seemed to be trying to make his own point through his own rep.
No, but that is an important point. You can't get the information, Cal. For 10 years, he has refused to answer that question in the way that journalists want. There was a press conference just before he did that interview with Jim Gray. 300 reporters. He was asked the same questions. I submit Jim Gray knew he couldn't get information. He must have had another agenda.
Well, you know, Eric, this would never have bothered the press during the Ronald Reagan administration, when our friend Sam Donaldson used to get up and confront Ronald Reagan over and over again, arms for hostages, Iran-Contra. It all depends on the context. The thing that it didn't bother me that he was aggressive. Yes, I think, Jane, he may have gone on a little too long. What bothers me is the idea that reporters, even sports journalists, should not have the freedom to ask what they want, what they believe is newsworthy. The second thing that
Wait a
bothers
minute, who
me,
says they can't?
Well, the pressure from the top down. MasterCard called corporate management at NBC and asked them to put the pressure on Gray. This is outrageous. This should
on what?
never
Put the pressure on Gray to apologize?
To apologize. Yes, a sponsor can put pressure on a journalist, even a sports journalist.
But do we know that's why he apologized? Because NBC was also flooded with calls from the public who wanted him to apologize too.
Both, but what Cal is right that what MasterCard did was really outrageous. He's on to something else, and that's Iran-Contra. I mean, to me, when
of you guys see a wrong country in Pete Rose.
When Pete Rose says he didn't bet on baseball, it's equivalent to George Bush Sr. saying I was out of the loop on the Iran and Contra scandal.
And now, just a minute, please. And now for one of the most difficult transitions, thanks to you, I've ever had to make on this show. We'll get back to it, but I want to do a quick review of what happened in the United States of America after the Jim Gray interview with Pete Rose. Now, one of the first steps, a website sprang up urging people to boycott NBC until it fired Gray. Then, saying that he had thought it important to quiz Rose, Jim Gray apologized.
If in doing so the interview went on too long and took out some of the joy of the occasion, then I want to say to baseball fans everywhere that I am very sorry about this.
All right, perhaps the MasterCard apology, but then Yankee Chad Curtis, who was the hero of World Series Game 3, refused a post-game interview with Gray anyhow.
It's not a personal thing against him. It's just something that we decided as a team to do, and if my teammates decide that, I'm going to honor it.
Did we all make too much of this, or was it in fact, Cal, kind of a symptom of what journalists do when they are excessive?
This is not being made too much of, Eric. This is extremely important. Access was brought up a moment ago, I think, by Jane. Many of the reporters in news right now are being careful about the kinds of questions they ask certain guests because the guests know that they have power to decide on what network they'll appear. And if they want to appear on your network and they appear on the rival's network, they get the ratings boost and the sponsors are happy. This is very dangerous stuff from a First Amendment standpoint.
I hate to agree with Cal again.
You're coming to my side.
But he's right on this. Here was a guy in power. They're punishing a journalist for asking questions that are a little too tough. Sports reporters, especially on network TV, are usually cheerleaders. Here was a guy who tried to ask some questions, and he's getting punished by the lack of access.
But wait a minute, who's punishing him? And why don't they? In the one case, the Yankees were punishing him. Jim, why don't they have a right to? Why do journalists, Cal and Jeff, have the only rights if people are offended by journalist behavior?
The fans are free, obviously, to support Pete Rose and denounce Jim Gray. That's their right. However, I hate to agree with both Jeff and Cal. That's a scary thought. How I could even do that?
You realize, Jim,
I disagree with all three of you.
But I will say this: it is astonishing to me that somebody this guilty and this reprehensible as a human being would get this kind of support. I think that if you wonder where all these criminals and drug addicts and drug dealers and stuff in the sports profession come from, it's because obviously most reporters, with the exception of Gray, are too intimidated to actually go out and uncover what's really happening.
But Jane, you know why I think he got the support? I don't think it's because people think highly of Pete Rose so much as they were simply uncomfortable watching a confrontational moment, and it wouldn't have mattered who was involved. It was just not comfortable to sit and watch.
Well, let me bring up Iran-Contra. How about Dan Rather and George Bush? I mean, people don't like the appearance of somebody beating up on somebody, and I think they were reacting, and Pete Rose got the sympathy vote. That's what happened.
Yeah, I want to agree. Bob Costas could have done this better. He would have stopped earlier. Ted Koppel could have interviewed George Bush Sr. better and would have stopped earlier on the Iran-Contra interview from a decade ago.
All right, we're going to stop now on this segment, which had an amazing amount to do with Iran-Contra. Our production meeting didn't account for all of that. We're going to take a break. When we come back, the media and the World Series of politics.
It was first debate week for the presidential candidates. Who won round one in the battle for best coverage?
Sure, my arthritis hurts, but I don't like strong-smelling rubs, so I rub in odor-free Aspercreme.
Clinically proven to relieve minor arthritis pain in minutes.
It works well without the smell.
Aspercreme, clinically proven odor-free pain relief without aspirin.
Freedom. Control. What a ride. Just you and your laptop. Log on to autobytel.com for dealer cost info, reviews, and a low, no-haggle price. It's a hassle-free trip. Autobytel.com. The road to your next car.
My dad started this business. When I took over, we had more work than we could handle, but we needed a better way to manage cash flow and pay for supplies. So we got the corporate card from American Express Small Business Services. We can pick up renovation materials, order heating equipment, and put it on the card. And now that they take it at Costco, we'll save on more of the things we use every day. We've made a good business even better with the corporate card.
To apply for the card, call 1-800-SUCCESS.
Getting those urban cowboys on horses was trying enough.
and you throw in some serious chili, we're talking